Hi, I'm Jerry Kroll, and this is Legal Las Vegas, where we pull back the curtain on the mystery of what goes on behind those courtroom doors. We're here in Las Vegas, Nevada, because this is the gambling capital. But the reality is that courtroom trials and casino gambling have something in common. It's called probabilities. What's the probability of rolling a 7 or an 11? What's the probability of getting a jury verdict in a courtroom trial? That's what we talk about here. Because when you walk through those courtroom doors, anything can happen. And sometimes it does. You got the truck, got the Airstream. And we're gonna hit the road, because we're gonna talk to the people who really know what goes on. So, strap yourself in, get ready, relax. We're gonna roll the dice together and take a chance. I brought my Airstream here today to an undisclosed location in the western United States so that we can interview one of the nation's top trial lawyers to get some insight. He is probably one of the most famous lawyers in America that you've never heard of, but you've heard of the movie where he was portrayed. In the movie Erin Brockovich, Peter Coyote portrays a character named Kurt Potter, but that's really a fake name. Really, it's Walter Lack, and that's who's going to be our guest here today. How many lawyers get to be portrayed by a famous actor in a movie? Well, you're going to meet one of them right now. He is one of the most influential lawyers in the United States of America. Welcome, our guest today, Walter Lack. Hey, Walter.
Hi, Jerry. Nice to see you again.
Better to see you. You know, I thank you so much for showing up and taking the time. You know, you are such a interesting lawyer. Your career. I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Well, they say I've been practicing law for 48 years.
Oh my God.
After that, you get pretty good at it.
Walter, good for you. God bless you. So, in your practice, I mean, sometimes do you feel like you're maybe more of a gambler than a lawyer?
Well, I never refer to it as gambling. I call it the risk-benefit analysis. It's the same principle that Wall Street is founded after. But the principles of taking risk and getting a reward apply across the board to the legal profession, to the medical profession. It's just a matter of the words you want to use to describe it.
Wow. Well, I was saying before you sat down here that you're one of the few lawyers, maybe ever, to be portrayed in a movie. And it's such a great accomplishment. That was such a great thing. How did you end up getting into the Erin Brockovich case?
Well, it's a pretty short story. Ed Masry, who was and had been a referring lawyer of mine for 20 years, he is portrayed by Albert Finney in the movie, quite well, I'd say, called me in a panic. He said, I've got the biggest case of my career, but I don't know what to do. I represent 13 people that drank poison water out in a town called Hinkley, which I had never heard of. I had to look it up in the map. And they've now come to me. Case has been going for less than a year, and they've offered me $5 million for these 13 cases. So I said, well, tell me a little bit more. I said, are these the only people that drank the water? He goes, oh no, we got an entire community out there. Everybody was on well water. And everybody apparently was drinking this poison. And so he said, what do you think I should do? And I leaned over and I said, Ed, here's what I'd do. I'd go out tomorrow and buy a $100 million legal malpractice policy insuring you and your firm. And then I will sue you. And at the end of that case, we will split the fee and you'll get way more than settling the case for $5 million. And he looked up and he said, oh, you think it's a good case? I said, it could be a great case, but it's going to take unlimited resources.
Wow.
to do this.
So okay, I mean, stop you there, Walter, but you know, here he tells you this story. Great case, right? So what really want to know is, I mean, what are you thinking at this point? I mean, you got to, what criteria are you using to decide whether you're going to jump into this?
I say, first, who are we suing? It's the largest utility company in the world. We had other cases against them, but nothing like this. And then I went to our banker and said, how much money are you willing to loan us? Because it's going to take 5 years to put this case in the corral.
Wow.
And then I told Ed, I think we may have to bring in a third firm for additional resources. Because you got to remember, I only work on a contingent fee. If I lose, I don't eat.
No win, no pay.
No pay, and
No food.
and all the costs that I put into it, I've lost. Whereas PG&E hires these corporate lawyers, they pay them by the hour, and the worst that could ever happen to them is if they screw the case up, they get fired. My poor client, this is probably the only asset they have in life. They're expecting me to win so that they can pay their future medical and their wages.
So what do you do at this point? Here, you get this great case. You have this potential of jumping in here. Did you think about, hey, how much money is this going to cost me?
I did, and I thought it might cost a couple $1 million to get through the first trial.
Did you say a couple of million?
Yeah.
So wait a second. So
We've got file
you reach in the
cabinets.
pocket, you pull out your American Express card.
Unfortunately, we have file cabinets full of those kinds of cases, so we were ready.
Yeah.
But I never anticipated what was going to happen.
So how much money did you have to plunk down to make this case fly?
Well, when we finished the second trial, I had over $6 million of cash
$6 million.
in the case,
Oh my gosh.
and they had not offered one penny. But something happened during the second trial that changed everything.
What's
And
that?
this is, well, you talk about gambling. All gamblers know there's luck. And every
Okay.
now and then you got to have some luck. And so to prove a toxic tort case, and this is the law requires that you establish what the dose was of every client out there. And there's no way we could establish dose or a
Exactly.
matter of years because PG&E told us they had no records of how much water and volume
Oh
of
my
water
gosh.
was out there. And without that, we were really having a hard time. And one day in the mail, in the first week of a 7-month trial, I got a brown manila envelope addressed to me, personal and confidential, and I opened it up, and there were the water records, just
Well,
a sampling.
Okay, you get a brown envelope with your name on it. No return address. You don't know
No.
who it's from.
No return address, but the person who sent that to me called Erin Brockovich and said, you may not know this, but a month after you filed this lawsuit, I was instructed to go out at midnight with a coworker and take all of their historical water records and take them to a dump. I
Oh
can
my
take you
gosh.
directly to the dump where we dumped it.
So wait.
So
were-
all hell broke loose.
Oh my gosh.
And the court, there's a doctrine that says if you're a defendant and you despoil records that we need to prove our case,
Yeah.
then there will be a presumption against you that you were trying to hide the evidence. And that was the presumption that won the case.
Oh my gosh. Walter, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a true story.
So I mean, this is sort of like, you walk through the courtroom doors, you never know what's going to happen. Is that what you'd say happened here?
That's exactly what happened. We never expected them to fumble as badly as they did. And this woman made the most powerful witness.
Walter, you plunked down $6 million. That's a lot of money. Did you ever think, hey, I could lose the $6 million?
I thought I could lose it, but I never told my bankers that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but they're going to hear now a few years later. So ultimately, what happened? I mean, what was the outcome?
Well, if you see the movie, it looks like $330 million showed up on Erin's porch step one morning. It doesn't say anything about the two trials. The first trial was 10 cases, took a month.
Wow.
Second trial was 30 cases. It took 7 months.
No one knows this.
And when they were filming this movie in my office, I asked the director, I said, don't you want to hear my story? He goes, no, this isn't about the lawyers. This is about Erin. And so, but the point is that at the end of the day, 6 years after we took on the case, they paid $333 million to resolve 600 cases. And they honestly thought that was the end of it. And the day the money cleared my trust account, we filed another 1,000 cases. And they ended
my
up,
gosh.
at the end of the day, 4 years later, paying a total of $800 million.
Oh my gosh.
No one knows that.
Nobody knows that.
It's quiet.
I mean, really, this is like breaking news.
And
Well,
the EPA is making him clean it up. It's going to take 56 years.
oh my God.
They pull a million gallons a week out of the earth. They pour it on top. They grow alfalfa.
Wow.
They got all kinds of fixes.
Amazing.
56 years.
56 years.
Yeah.
Walter, that's crazy. I mean, you've had two of these, probably more of these giant toxic tort cases, but you must have had other cases where things happen and where these unexpected, yeah, that's kind of the cool thing we want to find out is, I mean, what kind of were the craziest things that have happened to you in these cases out of nowhere?
Oh, this is a good one. I remember. It's called Silk Air. It was a 737 crash, a flight from Jakarta to Singapore, 115 people on board. They take off, uneventful ascent, cruising at 33,000, and all of a sudden the plane pitches down, and 3 minutes later it's 24 deep in a river in Indonesia. Everybody's dead.
Oh my gosh.
Here's what happened. 2 days after the crash, Boeing has this massive public relations machine they started
Right.
up. They said, well, it's clearly pilot suicide because, first of all, you pulled all the electrical switches that control the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, so there'd be no evidence of what happened to the airplane. We know the second officer left the room, we know this, and he locked the door behind him. We know that the pilot in command had this massive mortgage that he was in default on. So they put all that together and told their little tale. So I get the case, and the lawyers who worked it up, 3 years working it up, had this cascading electrical theory because of all these electrical devices that had failed. So, I'm looking at it, and I don't know even to get involved, but there's 100 dead people.
This law firm has handled the case for 3 years and without any evidence seemingly to suggest somebody's liable for this crash, except suggestion is pilot suicide. So why would you step into a case that seemingly has a 0% chance of success?
Because their theory of cascading electrical failure could never work with the physical evidence. We know we got the radar printouts from the closest air traffic control facility that showed us exactly what the plane was doing after it started diving at 33,000
Right.
feet. And it went straight down, and then it went into a spin, an asymmetric spin that you could never recover from.
Wow.
All right? So I have an expert in Colorado who may be the greatest expert I've ever met in aviation.
Wow.
So we spent 2 days going over this, and we've got a videographer to actually show us what it looked like going down. We made a movie out of that.
Wow.
And the expert said, I can tell you what I think this is.
Hmm.
And I think that there's an elevator failure. An elevator controls an airplane going up and down, whereas the rudder controls it going right and left. So, we don't have any of the parts. Everything's in Indonesia. So I called the guy who was in charge of the investigation in Indonesia,
Right.
because I knew him personally. We had other cases over there.
Oh.
And I said, Rudy, does any part of that tail section still exist? He goes, no, but I saved the actuator that controls the entire elevator and rudder system.
Oh my gosh.
It's in my safe. No one's ever asked me for it.
So,
I said, Rudy, I'm going to send you a first-class ticket from Jakarta to
Wow.
Miami, which is where my metallurgist was.
right.
And I want to put you up in the best hotel in Miami and
Wow.
expect to stay a week. So he brings this part. This part is an engineering marvel. It's a masterpiece. It costs $50,000 new. It weighs about 100 pounds and looks like an expanding telescope. And how it works is you put hydraulic fluid in, the cockpit gives it an input,
Right.
and it has a 20 tons capacity of moving elevators.
Wow.
Back and forth. Elevators up, elevator down. Elevator up, elevator down. All right, so Rudy flies over here, and nobody knows, okay? And so we have Rudy, because of the chain of custody problem, we have Rudy witness 4 days of scanning electron microscopy. And lo and behold, what did we find on the interior of this actuator is all kinds of metallic shards and shreds,
Oh my gosh.
thick enough to get in the interface
Wow.
to lock it up. Okay, so now
Wow.
I'm feeling really good.
This is
Really good.
Wow.
So now we immediately send a subpoena out. Now, who makes this little part? Boeing doesn't make it. One of the largest companies in the world making parts for aircraft is
Right.
Parker Hannifin, based in Irvine, California. Case is based downtown. You're not going to believe this. My expert found a crashed 737 with the tail intact. We bought the entire wreckage. We delivered it to the largest parking lot in LA Superior Court,
Oh my gosh.
paid him rent for 2 months, and the judge allowed us to go to the parking lot and show the jury how the actuator works on a real airplane.
Wow. That's so cool.
I know,
That is like amazing.
it was a miracle. Now, they never offered $1 on this case. It's a 1-month trial. The jury comes back, and and listen to who my clients were. They weren't even good plaintiffs. 2 were stewardesses, Chinese girls that lived with their parents in China. They were giving them $700 a month to live in their home.
Wow.
And we brought the parents over here. We had interpreters. And
Yeah.
make a long story short, the first 4 cases went for $50 million. Right?
Wow.
And then they bring in, they
Walter.
got to bring in a better law firm.
Yeah.
And they start the appeal process. And during the middle of the appeal, they ended up writing a check for $200 million for everyone.
Wow.
This is from a zero offer case.
Walter, I mean, now we've heard 2 cases. First, you had the brown manila envelope in Erin Brockovich, right?
Yeah.
Now we got a piece of metal from Indonesia.
Oh.
Okay. Don't tell me. Do you have more of this sort
There,
of like?
there
I
are
mean,
stranger cases than that.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to want to ask you because this is very strange and very interesting. Well, let me ask you, Walter. I mean, what about cases where you look at them and do you ever say to yourself, this is like the right thing to do? I should take this case.
Yes, it just happens to be an airplane case, but it could have been anything. People probably never heard of Galaxy Airlines, but it was a charter airline based in Minneapolis that would fly people to Vegas and Reno for gambling junkets. And the flight in question would leave Minneapolis at Friday morning, and it was a Super Bowl junket where they added 2 days. You fly into Reno, you gamble 2 days, and then they were supposed to leave Saturday night to get over to San Francisco for the Super Bowl. So the plane was due, and it was an Electrojet. Now that's an older jet, but it was the 737 of its day. It was a workhorse.
That's a 4-engine
Yes.
turboprop.
Correct.
Right. Got it.
They take off from Reno Airport. They were supposed to depart at 10 p.m. And of course, once you start winning at a crap table, you never leave. And these people were straggling in. They didn't leave till midnight, 2 hours late.
Mm-hmm.
All airplanes have an auxiliary power unit that's on the ground that will make air. You take a hose, you hook it up to the wing, and then the air can go through for the passenger's comfort. So they had an air hose assembly screwed into the leading edge of the right wing. There's a little door there that opens. Well, we didn't find this out till much later. Apparently, they didn't close the door.
Oh my
So
God.
how is that going to crash an airplane? So they take off, and there was only one survivor, and we learned all this from the survivor. But even the cockpit voice recorder made it sound like the plane was coming apart. The pilot panicked. We've got a mayday. We've got a mayday. We're gonna go around to land this thing. I don't know what's happening, but the plane's falling apart.
Wow.
The wings were shuddering.
Wow.
And as they go around, he decreased his speed because, higher speed would be more vibration.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a logical reaction by a pilot. And they never really made it. He stalled the plane, crashed, killed everyone but a 16-year-old boy who was launched out the front of the plane 200 yards ahead, and he survived, and he's doing fine today.
Which is crazy. So what happened?
All right,
Did you figure it out?
everybody blamed the pilot. It's a stall. I mean, you don't fly a plane into the ground except if you're negligent. So Galaxy had their insurance with Lloyd's. Lloyd's paid all of the dead victims and their families. It was over $100 million they paid out. Galaxy came to me and said, look, this whole plane is a black eye on our reputation. Our business reputation is shot. We can't continue our business without. Yeah. We don't think it was that. We have an Electra pilot who says he has personal knowledge of at least 2 other situations like this where the same thing happened, but the pilot applied max power and was able to fly out of it. There's no warning in the Lockheed flight manual for leaving the air start door open and what to do. There's no warning. There were never any flight tests done to simulate this, a completely foreseeable event, because the ground crew is the one responsible, not the flight crew.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'll do this on one condition. You got to pay. I got to do an experiment. You got to pay for this. And so they put $3 million in the till, which allowed me to hire the greatest accident reconstruction I've ever worked with. He found an entire fleet of Electras still working in Anchorage, Alaska.
What year is this?
This is about 15 years ago. So he goes up there. I mean, it's a big crew. We have people that can measure vibration within the cabin.
Yeah.
They stick their vibrometers on the seats. The pilot's and the co-pilot's head was affixed with these vibration measuring equipment. We leave the air start door open. We have a camera in the cockpit. We have a camera on the passengers, and we have a camera following the plane until he makes liftoff. So we could actually see the air start door fluttering. And by God, we proved that was exactly the cause of that crash, because exactly the same thing happened.
That's crazy.
It was shocking.
It must be. I mean, these poor people died for something that could have been preventable.
When the dust settled, and after Lockheed's lawyers couldn't punch holes into our simulated crash, they paid for half of the thing when they got some really good publicity for Galaxy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Walter, that's
felt really good about
that. Walter, what I mean, in terms of just your view of the world here. I mean, part of what we're thinking is you've had all these great hits. You've had some really interesting cases. The unexpected and all that. I mean, anything after all this time. Okay, you sit here today after 48 years. Okay, you doing anything different now when you look at this as opposed to when you got this thing going in the first place?
Not a thing different. I'm still playing for the fumble. Okay, because they're going to fumble eventually.
Well, Walter, I just want to say, we are so grateful to have had this chance to talk together today. And I hope we'll have a chance to chat again, because you are one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And you are one of the best trial lawyers in this country. And I'm grateful for the chance to have a chance to listen to you, and that everybody else here can listen to us as well.
Well, you can tell I like what I do, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And it hasn't been a bad payday along the way.
Walter, all I can say is God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.